Panama as an offshore jurisdiction has been front and center in recent years as a result of the now infamous Panama Papers leaks. But let's talk about reality. There are still a lot of folks out there with misconceptions about how taxes and business and immigration in Panama works. Not just the do-gooder media, but actual people who run businesses who want to go where they're treated best. And so in this video, I'm going to address several key misconceptions about how Panama works. Hi guys, I'm Andrew Henderson. If you'd like to learn how the Nomad Capitalist team can personally help you keep more of your money with lower tax rates through proper international planning, get a second passport, find new opportunities, you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Now, let's talk fact, not fiction. I hear so many misconceptions about Panama, partially because of the Panama Papers, partially because people are kind of scared about it, partially because in a sense I think people are still empowered by the idea that Panama is still a bit of the Wild West and you can get away with stuff that you actually can't. And also because of people who over-promote Panama because that's their business. They have an objective to promote Panama and they make money by promoting Panama. Let's go through 4 misconceptions that you should be aware of. Number 1 is the misconception that you can go to Panama and hide money there, or that you should go to Panama and hide money there. Now, I'll address both points. On Panama's side, Panama signed on to what's called the CRS, or the Common Reporting Standard, back in 2018. That means they're one of the 100-plus jurisdictions that's now exchanging information back and forth, and no doubt they were pushed to do that. Certainly Panama has had more secretive reputation in the past, but in this era of transparency, they did not want to get on more blacklists, and so they are now sharing information. And so if you live in Belgium, for example, and you have a bank account in Panama, Belgium's going to know. And so if you leave Belgium, then that may not be as important. But as long as you're living in Belgium, they're going to know, and they're going to know what's going on. Can you and should you hide money there? No, you shouldn't. Now, you know, people call me the goody two-shoes of the offshore business. I like to keep things clean. I like to play by the rules, even when the rules aren't fair, because there are so many ways that you can turn the rules to work in your favor by going where you're treated best. You don't have to stay in Belgium, right? But this idea that Panama is this place to, do all kinds of shady stuff really isn't the case anymore. In fact, while I haven't studied in great detail the Panama Papers case, because I don't like to get into sensationalism, I think you had a lot of sensationalism in that case. You have a dopey Netflix movie. You had lots of press coverage. Almost none of those people wanted to give the parties involved a fair shake. It's just, Panama bad. These guys are bad. Little regard, by the way, for the fact that politicians had stashed their money there. No, it's you, the 7- and 8-figure entrepreneur, who needs to be punished. We should cut things off. That said, Panama, not a place to hide money. Hiding money really isn't a thing that we're doing now in the 2020s. Never was something that you should do. It's not something that you can do now, Panama or elsewhere. The number 2 misconception comes with a caveat, because it can be true, but it's not as easy as people make it out to sound. And that is that if you have a company in Panama and you're doing business, you're the kind of entrepreneur who's living the nomad capitalist lifestyle, you can pay 0% tax. Now, that's not entirely true in its face. Panama is not a zero-tax jurisdiction, and so there are different types of structures in Panama. You want to make sure you do it properly. There is tax in Panama. Local companies are paying tax. If you go to the store and buy a television and they make a profit, they're paying tax. What Panama does have is a regime where you can pay no tax if your customers aren't in Panama. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that in the years to come, because again, the OECD and groups like that are cracking down on countries with these kind of 2-tier tax systems. Countries like Panama, where they have like a carve-out for offshore income, is a little bit different perhaps. But we've already seen countries like Barbados have to harmonize their 2-part tax system into one flat structure that applies to both onshore and offshore businesses. We'll see what happens in Panama and how they adapt. However, there's another side to that as well. So while you could follow some basic protocol, set your company up properly, and pay the 0% in Panama, what you also want to know is that just because you pay nothing in Panama doesn't mean you don't pay something where you live. This is a common misconception. I'm talking about it frequently. If you've watched our videos on offshore companies, you've probably seen me mention it. If you live in a country that taxes you based on your residence, then you may very well pay tax on that Panama company where you live as if it's a local company. The United States, Canada, Australia, UK, pretty much every country in Europe and every developed country in the world has this kind of tax code where you pay based on where you live. And so the goal is having a Panama company doing everything that I mentioned properly to pay the 0% in Panama, and then living yourself personally in a low tax country or a zero tax country, okay? So Panama is not like the UAE, where there's simply no tax, okay? There's no tax on foreign income, either for people who live there under certain conditions, or for companies who are doing business there that are set up for doing business offshore. However, again, requires proper planning, and part of that planning requires you not to be sitting and living full-time in a high-tax country. So misconception number 3 is also a bit of a gray area. There is some truth, and there's also some fiction. And misconception number 3 involves immigrating to Panama. Now, Panama is a relatively open country for immigration. Lots of folks there from the US, from Canada, from Europe, from all over. Lots of different programs to get in. Now, the standard program to become a permanent resident is you invest $300,000 in the country. That can be a combination of real estate, different properties put together, real estate plus bank account. So you buy something for $200,000, put $100 grand in the bank. You can do forestry investments, lots of different opportunities to get in. They've got so many different programs. However, what happened back in 2012, 2013 was they came up with a new program for about 50 different countries, mostly developed countries, US, Canada, Europe, Australia, that kind of thing, called the Friendly Nations Visa, whereby you could become an instant resident with just a 5-year pass, just long-term pass, go 1 day a year, and you're in good shape. And only $5,000 bank deposit for the main applicant, and one economic tie. So that could be a company you could use as in your business structure. It could be some kind of cheaper kind of forestry investment. It could be a piece of real estate, some economic tie to the country. And so what people have done is they've said, oh, economic tie, that's like economic ties for tax residents. And so what they've done is they've taken this idea that you can become a permanent resident in Panama and they get tax status. I'll come back to that in a moment. What they've also said, however, is, oh, you can use that to get citizenship. And then some people even said, oh, when you get your second citizenship in Panama, you don't have to pay tax anymore. Let's be clear. If you're a citizen of 2 countries, both countries can tax you. Now, the United States, where a lot of the people coming and doing this program are from, is the only country that taxes you even if you don't live there, or at least you're subject to tax. You know, if you're from Belgium and you leave Belgium, you're fine, right? But if you are a U.S. and Panama dual citizen, the U.S. does not suddenly lose its rights over you. Oh yeah, you're also Panamanian? Cool, please pay. Right? Now, you could become Panamanian and then renounce your U.S. citizenship. You could become Panamanian and then leave Belgium and become a tax non-resident and deregister for tax. But just having Panama citizenship or having Panama residence doesn't do that. And so the issue with the citizenship is nobody's getting it. Oh, you can apply for citizenship in 5 years. Whenever you hear you can apply for something, doesn't mean you'll be accepted. And in this case, I've known people who've lived there for 15, 20 years. They don't have any citizenship. The paperwork is just sitting there on a desk somewhere. And so being able to apply for something is great, but I doubt that was your goal. When I go through with someone and I say, hey, give me your bullet point objectives. Let's start with the end in mind. Never do they say, I'd like to be able to apply for a second passport. They say, I want the citizenship in my hand, and oh, by the way, I want it to achieve this, this, and this objective. Plan B, tax reduction by renunciation, whatever. Okay. So the idea of getting citizenship through the immigration program hasn't really worked out the way people have expected it and the way people are still promoting in some cases. Okay. Now, you can get residence. And again, if you're from one of those 50 developed countries, it's a streamlined process. It's bureaucratic. There's a lot of running around, but it can be done. And so that citizenship piece is the challenge. If you want to live in Panama, great. It's nice to have the residence. But you can't confuse the two, okay? The fourth misconception is piggybacks off of that one, and that is what people are doing to promote tax in Panama. Because again, there's this misconception that Panama is just zero tax. It can be easily obtained on a corporate level, but it's not necessarily the case for every business. Likewise, on the personal level, people say, oh, well, you're a resident of Panama with your economic tie. You don't have to pay tax in your home country anymore. I heard someone tell me, oh, we went to a conference And we heard one of these guys who sells Panama. He told us, you're U.S. citizens, you can get your Panama permanent residence through the Friendly Nations Visa program. You spend 1 day a year here, and you have your economic tie. That ties you to the country, and therefore you can qualify for a tax exemption in the United States under the bona fide residence program. Absolutely not true. Not true in any other country either. You cannot spend 1 day in Panama to keep your Panama residence active and then just go back to wherever you're from and spend 364 days. It's not how it works. Yes, it's true that in some countries, including a lot of countries in Europe, they have more than what's called just the days test now. Even if you spend fewer than 6 months in their country, they still might get you on the economic substance test or the center of life test. They all have different names for their tests. And so, oh, economic tie. Well, but I have an economic tie in Panama. Okay, that's a start, but it's not enough to really help you. And if you go to your home country and say, hey, I'm a tax payer in Panama because I spent 1 day there, they'll laugh you out of their office and say, yeah, please pay. And so you can see, when you look at my tax-friendly quadrant, okay, there's the personal side of things, where are you leaving, where are you arriving? There's the business side of things, where's your business leaving, where is it arriving? If both of those are in Panama, then you can probably set up a structure with a pretty tax-effective life. But what I don't want you to do is to think simply being a physical resident of Panama through like the Friendly Nations Visa program is going to solve your personal tax problems on its face. Nor do I think that simply having a company in Panama is going to solve your business tax problems on its face. Everything works in tandem. And the challenge with Panama is there's been a lot of people out there who are targeting Americans and Canadians in particular, and targeting Panama is some kind of panacea and a cure for all your ills. There is no cure for all your ills. There are effective solutions that work when you do. And so the key, as I always say, be out of your home country. If you're a U.S. citizen, plan accordingly for the U.S. side of things on citizenship-based taxation, and then have your company somewhere good. But there's no hiding money in Panama. There's no easy path to citizenship guaranteed. And there's no guaranteed 0% tax simply by having a toe in the water. You need to be more in. Panama, not a bad jurisdiction, but it is unfortunate that all the things that have happened in recent years have caused a lot of misconceptions. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.